Can you believe an organization which has been in existence for 350 years has suddenly facing financial crisis and almost in the verge of bankruptcy and even reached out to the court for creditors protection and also on the verge of closing their entire operations in Canada. And that organization is absolutely one of the top retail chains in Canada, which has a lot of limelight that have seen 3 centuries of immense customer retention that they've able to accrue and a lot of stuff that they have been able to generate. However, I think this is a question of several factors where they could not sustain. It could be competition, it could be about the pandemic related aspects, and a lot many. We'll talk about that today and see how this organization was not able to evolve with the changes that happened in the environment in terms of the market conditions and all of it. And we have seen a lot of these organizations back home in probably in 2008 and 2009, like Lehman Brothers and all of that, which has again 3 centuries of history that collapsed overnight, kind of a thing. And the Hudson Bay is no exception, which has a similar story to it. I'll take it through in detail in today's session. So Hudson Bay has been an icon in Canada from fur trading posts to luxury department stores. It was more than just a retailer. It was part of the country's identity. And but now it's facing a slow and painful collapse all of a sudden, kind of a thing. And how does a company with such a deep legacy fall apart? And what went wrong? And more importantly, what it could have been saved. Started in 1670 as a trading empire, and it controlled massive swaths of land, basically running what would later become Canada. And fast forward to the 20th century, Hudson's Bay reinvented itself into departmental store chain and became the place where Canadians shopped for everything, be it clothes, furniture, home goods, and everything that a typical homemaker might want to go and shop. And the iconic, and it's become more like a cultural symbol here for a lot of customers. And for decades, the Bay was unshakable for anybody who might have entered into Canada. But slowly that changed everything. It's important to understand what probably are the root causes of today's question of its existence. So, precisely, it could not keep up with the competition, especially firms like Walmart, Costco started entering into Canada, offering cheaper products with massive collections. And then also came Amazon changing the way people shopped forever, right? The Bay tried to modernize, but it was always playing a catch up to stay up to the competition rather than trying to bring that innovation upfront to the Canadian customers. And there's also a cause of a poor leadership and bad decisions because ownership changed hands multiple times with for this organization. Each new leadership team promised to turn around, but instead more bad calls were made. And they brought struggling brands like Saks Fifth Avenue instead of fixing their core business, understanding what exactly the customer wanted. And also, one of the biggest failures is their e-commerce aspect. When the world moved online, in any country for that matter, the Bay lagged behind. Its website was glitchy, slow and outdated, and a nightmare compared to Amazon or even newer Canadian retailers like Simon's. And customers got frustrated and left for good, right? So the customer experience is absolutely necessary when it comes to online shopping. And that added, which is nothing but COVID-19, forced a forced store closures, and the Bay already struggling took a massive hit by all of this COVID-19 episodes. But the time things reopened after 2022, I believe many shoppers never came back because they got used to something else by then. For now, Hudson Bay is still around. They're trying to close a lot of their operations. With the recent update, I think they're trying to retain 6 of its premier outlets in Ontario and Quebec, but largely they're trying to shut down all the operations and trying to liquidify all of those merchandise that they may have in those stores across Canada. So what happens to the future? Nobody knows, but it looks pretty grim. Store closures, layoffs have been happening, and dwindling sales tell a clear story. This once mighty retail empire is on a life support. And what are the important lessons here? Even the biggest brands are not immune to change. If you don't evolve, you get left behind. It same applies to us even in the work environments. We have to keep upskilling, reskilling, and trying to gauge our value. What is that we are today may not be the same for tomorrow. What is that we're trying to change broadly to stay competitive, to stay relevant, and carry the same value that we have today to tomorrow, right? So we can be becoming redundant at what point to the employer, to the organization, or the customer. So how do we really keep ourselves up to the breast is so important. So nobody knows if Hudson Bay is going to really survive. It could be an end of a Canadian institution all the way.